Welcome to the Process Breakdown Podcast, where we talk about streamlining and scaling operations of your company, getting rid of bottlenecks, and giving your employees all the information they need to be successful at their jobs. Now, let's get started with the show.
Dr. Jeremy Weisz here, host of the Process Breakdown Podcast, where we talk about streamlining and scaling operations of your company, getting rid of bottlenecks, and giving your staff everything they need to be successful at their job. Check out past episodes. Past guests include David Allen of Getting Things Done, Michael Gerber of The E-Myth, and many more. And before I introduce today's guest, this episode is brought to you by Sweet Process. And Daniel, you may be able to relate to this. If anyone out there has had team members ask you the same questions over and over again, and it may be the 10th time you spent explaining it, there is a better way. The solution is Sweet Process. It's a software that makes it drop dead easy to train and onboard new staff, save time with existing staff. When I was talking to one of the founders, Owen, not only do universities, banks, hospitals, and software companies use them, but first responder government agencies use them in life or death situations to run their operations. So you can use Sweet Process to document all the repetitive tasks that eat up your precious time and your team's time so you can focus on growing your team. And there's a free 14-day trial. There's no credit card required. Go to sweetprocess.com. It's sweet like candy, SWEET process.com. I am excited to introduce today's guest, Daniel Delank. He is Managing Director and COO of LoadBee. Daniel, thanks for joining me.
Hi, and thanks and welcome to the show.
Yeah, welcome to Germany, near Germany.
Exactly.
No,
go ahead.
What does LoadBee do?
So LoadBee is a company that it's actually a SaaS company. So we provide services to our clients. And we do content syndication. So we actually put product information in different retailer stores and help our clients to, of course, promote their products with the best content they have, be it videos, be it virtual reality and 360 degrees GIFs and animations, videos, whatever they have. So we bring that content from the offline world into the online world and present them with the right spotlight. So give me an example. So for example, we work in Germany with Otto.de, which is an online retailer. And we work with clients, and they store their product, like for example, a computer and the products on our web page, on our platform, and we push that information through different kind of stores. So we have more than 300 clients that put their product informations in our database. And we have more than 1,800 retailers that we push that information towards. So it's a great way for our clients to be able to store and administrate once the product information and be able to push it through different shops. The benefits, of course, for the client is that they see additional add to cart rate, in particular in the shops, but also increase in the conversion, because with better content and rich content, of course, in the buying process of in the online world, in the e-commerce world, the better the customers are informed, the better, of course, they can make their decision. A good example, for example, is the let's say, if you have a energy bar, and there's of course a big difference between a cheaper price point and a high cost price point. So now how you can differentiate in an online store if you want to ask for a high price point, and of course you need to differentiate, right? You need to help the buyer having or making the right decision. So by enriching the content, enriching the decision process with the right information like images, photos, videos, etc., you can argue why you have or ask for a higher price point. And here we really help our clients to promote their products in the different e-commerce shops.
So on the energy bar standpoint, you have let's say there's an energy bar company, and then you have a partnership with maybe like whatever, 1,800, 2,000 retailers. And does that go on their online portal? Like the information for that energy goes on there. So anyone who shops for that particular store would basically going on that website, shopping, and then they run across this energy bar and they can buy a box of those energy bars on that particular website.
Exactly. Let me explain it maybe more profoundly, technically, how it works. So the retailer actually pushes a snippet, let's say, in their online store. And once the client has stored the information or the product information in our database, of course, via a request, we can push then that information, we call it the syndication, towards the retailer. And of course, there's a big headache because every retailer has a different, let's say, shop system, a different form how to store the products. And we help to overcome that challenge for our clients, the brands, the manufacturers. So by having already a quite big number of retailers attached to our database, it is of course very convenient to put the product information in our database.
That's cool. So the client gets more product sales,
Exactly.
and then the retailer, do they then make a percentage? They probably decide what the pricing is be, kind of like an online grocery store, essentially in that particular case. So they would make some money as well. They'll expand their product line without having to hold inventory, and they'll make money also. Is that right?
Exactly. So the challenge for the retail in particular is that in some cases for certain products, it costs, in the discussion with our clients, let's say the retailers, we figured out that there is a huge amount of money required in order to put certain products in their shops, right? Imagine that you have to collect all the product information, you need to make photos, you need to make images, you need to enrich the content, you need to put it on the web page. And of course, that's also a problem that we solve for the retailers by just adding a snippet in their web shop. They can actually have really great content to have basically, I mean, to make it simple, they just would need to add their logo on top of the page, and we would be able to completely fill up the website with content.
Do you only do this in certain countries?
We do that globally. Of course, we have a certain, let's say, agglomeration of clients in DACH area, but we are on a way of expansion. So we work with global clients as well.
Thanks for explaining. That's really cool.
No,
you're kind of helping
awesome.
me create mini Amazons, sort of.
Right? We will, and we can.
Yeah, I love that. I want to talk about operational excellence. Being COO, you probably focus a lot on making sure things are running smoothly, efficiently. But one of the things I know you think a lot about is that operational excellence starts with the right mindset. So
Absolutely.
What do you mean by that?
So in particular, if you have a small organization, so in my former times, I've worked for huge organization, but also there, it is very important to put always everything in question, meaning I'm on the right path, do I put the right measures in place in order to achieve operational excellence? What does actually operational excellence actually mean in my certain environment? So in our case, we as a SaaS company, of course, thrive for automation, a high level of automation, because every touch point that we do helps us or doesn't help us actually to scale. So by having the right mindset, I mean to have this, let's say, that mindset of making the right questions, understanding the different procedures, trying to find best ways or improvements that you can implement in order to really be as efficient and as effective as possible in order to make the minimum input and the maximum output. And I think it's very important from a mindset perspective to really be self-reflective, self-honest as well, to raise the hand and say, well, this is a process which is not running efficiently, in particular if you are in a growth scenario like we are. Because of course, it is very important to listen to your staff and trying implementing what they tell you in this aspiration of excellence.
Expand on that for a second. So give me an example of when in the past you've listened to staff and implemented something that has really made a difference, because they're on the ground and they kind of know how to make things better.
Absolutely, and I think there was a good manager saying, "Listen to your staff, listen to your clients, shut the fuck up and do what I tell you." And I love that because it's so true.
That's the name of your new book?
Pardon?
No, that's the name of your next book.
Maybe. No, I think that somebody else should write that book.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is that, so to give you a concrete example, we have organized ourselves around different industries, because there are specifics in the different industries that you cannot, let's say, mix up. For example, we are working heavily in the consumer electronics area, and here there are certain vocabulary being used. There are certain retailers that are relevant. There are certain brands that are relevant, and of course, it's really important to speak their language, understanding their challenges, and that really varies from the different industries. And I was joining the team some months ago with the idea that, well, maybe this isn't the right way, in particular to maybe find new harmonization areas or maybe better synchronization. Maybe we should mix this up. But I was convinced that this is the wrong approach, because you cannot mix up different industries, because they have different needs. They have different, let's say, talking points, and for that reason, it is very essential to not try to implement, let's say, excellence by all means, but to reflect and according to the feedback you receive, find other ways how you can find excellence. And the excellence, of course, that we now try to achieve within the different, let's say, focus teams, so the industry teams, is how we can improve the process, how we onboard a client, how we actually onboard a retailer, how we put our story in place so that they the best way can understand what we actually do, and so on. So I think it's in this way it's very important to listen to your staff and trying to adapt also your decision-making process.
One thing I want to talk about with the mindset of operational excellence is this becomes very important when a client relationship gets destroyed and gets tarnished. And so I would love for you to walk me through a scenario where the client relationship's not good and you come in.
Absolutely. So, I mean, it was not in the current gig, but in my before, let's say, working experience, where I was asked to support a project team and the client relationship was completely destroyed. The project was running for some months, so cost was completely out of control. There were no project plan in place. There was no staffing in place. So you join in the team and you really say, well, we should really start doing our homework. And I think also this has a lot to do with operational excellence, because at the end it's all simple steps, small steps that you should take in order to get things done. And of course, within this difficult environment, the first task was to get, let's say, the relationship with the client reactivated, build up a trust level in building up a confidence level with the client. So for me, the things between human beings, also between client and supplier relationship, is of course trust. And trust has a lot to do with reliability and with reopening the relationship with the client and being reliable, saying this is now what's going to happen. So there will be a dip because we first need to reactivate our forces. We need to streamline our processes so that we can make a completely relaunch of the project plan. And then based on the project plan, make a reinforcement of our workforce in order to be able to execute the project plan accordingly. And that then also leads to a new cost line for us as a supplier, and of course also for the client. And I think with simple steps, putting this into work packages and really executing then accordingly based on the promises and the plan that you have designed, was really the key for success in order to regain trust with the client, in order to reinforce the relationship, also to build up then again a certain passion in the team again. Because imagine that you're working in a team that has failed, of course, that gets a lot of pressure inside of let's say the company, but as well as from a client side. And I think here it was really important and key for success to talk first, of course, with the client to understand his view, his needs, but as well, bring in this mindset within the team that it's not all rubbish what has been done. It's really now getting the homework done. Of course, there's a certain level of work that needs to be happen, but it's only us that we can fix the problem in front of the client. And so the key was to keep the people that has been part of the project, that has the knowledge, but of course help them, enable them in order to get the homework done, because you cannot fix a project that was running that, let's say, crazy by continuing without a plan, without certain level of excellence.
Yeah. So it kind of starts with a specific plan. And in this case, when a relationship is destroyed, basically it's tough because trust is lost at that point. So even if you put a plan in place, they may not even believe that that's going to happen. But you're saying start at least with a specific, hear out all the frustrations first, put a plan in place to avoid, to get past those frustrations, and then slowly execute on each of those steps to build the trust back up. Is that right?
Exactly. I mean, of course, by having already a huge delay in the project plan, or let's say in the project execution, it is really hard, of course, to catch up. So most likely, and in this case, it was really that by reiterating the project plan, of course, we came up with a target delivery date, which was, let's say, out of range for the client in the first place.
Right. They're already mad at this point.
Yeah, I mean, but of course, by then reiterating this project plan with the client itself, because of course, in this kind of projects, you always have, let's say, also a kind of a cooperation method or cooperation working method in order to be able to succeed. So with iterating this project plan together with the client, let's say, let them understand what are our restrictions in terms of maybe staffing, knowledge, what is their desperately needs, what is their limitations, because also, of course, they also have their, let's say, their targets to achieve. By putting all these things on the plate and working together to build up a new joint project plan, and then let's say making this new plan, revised plan, the new Bible for the project, and really executing then according to this project plan. Of course, there will be always adaptation in a huge complex project going forward, but always being transparent, honest, concrete, trustful, and executing this project plan is and was key for success in order to rebuild the trust, but also in order to be able to execute the project accordingly. Because at the end, when I was joining, everybody was shouting against each other, right? So the client was shouting, "You fucked up the project." People was shouting, "Well, it was the other's fault." So at the end, it was not a very constructive mindset. It comes to mindset into play, and I was breaking this up and reopening the talks, because at the end it was obvious that without talking and without putting the facts together, you can't get out of this situation. And I think that was key, really, putting the facts together, working together as a joint team, knowing what has been the mistakes, but then also working against together to re-emphasize, to reiterate the plan, and then executing accordingly to the joint agreements. I think that rebuild the trust and also lead to a certain level of excellence by really executing then the project plan accordingly.
That makes sense, Daniel. I like what you said there because, when emotions are running high, to lower everyone's stress and emotions, it sounds like you bring in the facts. Like, here's what was done, here's what was not done, and you kind of lay them out in an objective fashion. So it helps take some of the emotion out of it and just helps to actually have something constructive to lay out a plan with, as opposed to just yelling or blaming, I guess you could say.
Exactly, and it was obvious that there are certain bandwidth within our teams, and there are certain, let's say, need in order to, let's say, switch certain workloads from, let's say, one location to another location. And I think that was really also not only the key, it was the only way in order to make transparent to the client. Yes, there has been mistakes done by ourselves. We have completely, let's say, misframed the project. But now with all the bringing the facts together, this is what we are capable of doing, because you also, the client needs to put their piece of it. And that's the maximum we can really achieve in a certain time frame. And by putting that together and by realizing that from our supplier side, but as well from a client side, really is putting the emotions out and putting the facts in. And I think that often helps. In particular, also if you think about process improvements or process excellence, because at the end, of course, there's always somebody that may shout out or say that a process is not running smoothly. But at the end, if you put the facts together and say, look, that are the facts, that's the process duration time, that's the touch points required in the process, that's the cost of a process, or whatever it is in terms of quantifiable KPIs, then you can start improving it. So there's you cannot improve what you cannot measure in a certain way.
Yeah. I have one last question, Daniel. My question is this, and then I want to point people towards they could find out more about you and the company. But my last question is about, whether it's about mindset or operations. I would love to hear some of your favorite resources, whether it be books or people or podcasts or whatever it is, on what are your favorite resources for more information around operational excellence / mindset. Before you answer that, where should we point people towards online to learn more about you and the company?
So our webpage is loadb, like the bee, and load.com. And I'm always available via LinkedIn, so you can search on LinkedIn for Daniel Delank, Daniel like Daniel, and Delank, Delank. And would be happy to support. Well, in particular, let's focus on the mindset topic, as this is a little bit my passion all about. I think there's a great book out there which I can highly recommend from Carol Dweck, Growth Mindset, and that.
Total Carol Dweck, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Exactly, and I love that book so much because it really is one of my core beliefs. So stay open, try to adapt without fearing of failure. Because at the end, I mean, we are all human beings, in particular also in this pandemic that we are all in. There's no right or wrong in a certain sense. So we are all need to adapt, and led by fear is a wrong, let's say, not a good advice. So I think you should make the best choice, the best decision that you can with the certain point in time, with the information that you have available. Of course, you should ask questions and question about the current situation, maybe if the data points that you have are available are the right ones. But once you need to take a decision, and it's better to have a fast failure instead of running maybe 1 or 2 months into the wrong direction. And I think that's something that has shown us this kind of pandemic, that it is very essential to make decisions fast, acknowledge if you have run a mistake. I think that's also something which we should see much more often. That's a book that I can highly recommend, of course.
Any others that you like?
Well, of course, there is autobiographies that I highly can recommend. I think that's something that you always can read, and I think you can extract a lot. Losing My Virginity by Richard Branson is something that I very liked, and I have read. And there is a book from Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, that I'm currently reading. I would need to check the title, but that's a book that
people could look it up. Yeah,
exactly. So I think that's also a book that I at least started to read. I'm mid through, and I very like the story behind the change in Microsoft.
Thanks for sharing that. I love hearing resources. Growth Mindset by Carol Dweck, Losing My Virginity by Richard Branson, and the other one by CEO of Microsoft. I love that because it's amazing, Daniel, that for like $20, you can basically learn from all of their life experience.
Absolutely.
And it's remarkable. Like my favorite is the Steve Jobs. I think Walter Isaacson wrote the one on Steve Jobs, and there's so many other ones out there. So I'm glad you pointed that out. Check out more episodes of the podcast. Check out loadb.com. And Daniel, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. And it was a pleasure being with you.
Thanks for listening to the Process Breakdown Podcast. Before you go, quick question. Do you want a tool that makes it easy to document processes, procedures, and/or policies for your company so that your employees have all the information they need to be successful at their job? If yes, sign up for a free 14-day trial of Sweet Process. No credit card is required to sign up. Go to sweetprocess.com, sweet like candy, and process like process.com. Go now to sweetprocess.com and sign up for your risk-free 14-day trial.
Hi, this is Owen, the CEO and co-founder here at Sweet Process. If you've enjoyed listening to this podcast interview, actually, you know what I want you to do? Go ahead and leave us a 5-star review on iTunes. That way we get more people aware of the good stuff that you get here on this podcast. Again, go on to iTunes and leave us a 5-star review. Looking forward to reading your review. Have a good day.